Today I want to bring you something a bit different. Not just technical analysis, not just news, but both combined. Because honestly, I think that's the only real way to understand what's happening in the crypto market right now, especially with Bitcoin. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear from the beginning. This is just my personal opinion. I can be wrong, and at some point I probably will be. The goal isn't to be right all the time, it's to manage risk properly. That's what really makes the difference. With that said, let's get into the context. Right now, the market is operating in a very noisy environment. We've got constant geopolitical tensions, statements changing every few hours or even minutes, rumors of agreements that later get denied, and all of this creates sharp, unpredictable movements. The main focus right now is the conflict between the US and Iran, and here's my personal take, you might agree or not. But I believe that in the coming days or weeks, we'll see some kind of resolution. There could still be tension, maybe even a more aggressive episode before that happens. But ultimately, I think this will end in an agreement. Why? Because if we're realistic, winning small battles is one thing, winning a war is something completely different. The most logical outcome is that both sides make concessions and reach some kind of understanding. And if that happens, the market will likely interpret it as something very positive. But until we get there, the road won't be smooth. This conflict is directly impacting oil, which has been moving sharply to the upside. And we already know what that means, more inflationary pressure and more uncertainty overall. In fact, international organizations are already warning that we could be entering a prolonged period of instability in energy prices, not just something temporary, but something that could last for years. And even with all of that, the market isn't collapsing. It's showing a pretty remarkable level of resilience. And that tells us something important. As many of you know, Bitcoin doesn't exist in a vacuum. What happens in the world affects its price, even if not always directly or immediately. In times of geopolitical uncertainty, Bitcoin tends to behave in one of two ways. Either it drops along with the rest of the market when there's real fear, or it acts as a safe haven asset and holds, or even rises. That's why my approach right now is to gradually position myself, carefully, in areas that make technical sense. And that brings us to the analysis. I'll keep this simple. I'm not a fan of using 1,000 indicators. The simpler, the better. For me, there are two fundamental pillars: price action and volume. Because volume is where you really see the market's intent. Right now, there are some very clear levels to keep in mind. We've got strong support around the 66,000 area on Bitcoin. Then there's an intermediate zone between $66,000 and dollars, where price spent quite a bit of time accumulating in dollars and $69,000, where price spent quite a bit of time accumulating. And above that, the key level the market is trying to reach is around $79,000. So what's happened over the past few days? Price tried to approach that $79,000 zone, but failed and did what it usually does in these situations. It corrected sharply down to around 74,000. Don't focus on exact numbers. These are zones, not precise levels. Now here's something many people overlook: institutional behavior. There are specific moments during the day, especially when the US market opens, where institutional money flows in, and that money doesn't analyze Bitcoin the way you and I might. It simply follows momentum. If they see price going up, they enter, and that creates sharp, sometimes seemingly irrational moves. But they're not irrational moves. If you look closely at volume, you'll notice a very clear pattern. Upward moves are fast, aggressive, and come with strong volume, while pullbacks are slower, weaker, and happen with lower volume. That tells you that the real interest is on the upside. At the same time, smart money keeps a certain level of fear in the market to continue accumulating under better conditions. Right now, we're in a very interesting zone between $74,000 and $79,000. Putting all of this together, price action, volume, institutional behavior, the conclusion is quite clear. We're in a bullish continuation phase. The most likely scenario is that price continues moving with volatility within this range, but with a clear tendency to push toward the $7,000 level. And when we get there, volume will be key. That's where we'll find out whether it's a real breakout or just another move to trap liquidity. And that's it for today's video and analysis. Bitcoin is showing relative strength. Technical analysis is pointing upward, but with key levels still to be confirmed. This isn't about entering just for the sake of it. It's about entering at meaningful zones with clear support levels and controlled risk, especially if you're using leverage. Focus on building a solid strategy. That's what will allow you to survive and win in the long run. That's my view as of today.